welcome to the next Lukozer retro game review video, and for this one I really have gone ambitious. This is SimLife, which was released for the Amiga by Maxis in 1993, and when it comes to complexity and depth, there is frankly no other game ever created that comes close to this one. This is a game that I did have back in the day. I actually had this version which I am running here. This is SimLife AGA, the high-res version, so you needed an Amiga 1200 to run this, or at least an Amiga with the AGA chipset. So we're on the main like game starting page, but before I start it, I should show you this here. Is the configuration that you really need to run this game at if you plan on playing it. So obviously we have the Amiga 1200 set up there. I've changed the processor to a 68060. The 1200 standard is 68030, or at least that's what my Amiga 1200 had, but for some reason WinUAE sets up an Amiga 1200 as having a 68020. So anyway, I've got it set to the 68060. I've selected CPU frequency to 4 times, so it's running at just over 14 megahertz. You could set it to 8 times, but I find 8 times is a little too fast, believe it or not. The other change that I made, so you can see I've got, the game comes on 3 discs, and it actually does use 3 drives. But I've got the floppy drive emulation speed up to the maximum, which is 800%, because this game does have a hell of a lot of disk accessing throughout. In fact, back in the day, the best thing to do with this game was to install it onto a hard drive. Unfortunately, that's not really an option if you have Amiga hardware, because, well, unless there are third-party companies that are making Amiga hard drives brand new, most Amiga hard drives that were available back in the day were somewhat fragile and are in pretty bad condition by now, so not all that reliable. I can't for the life of me remember how to set up a hard drive in WinUAE, so I am using it from floppy disks. So there will be some disk accessing, but as you've seen, I've got the drive speed set to 800, so 800%. So I've got the disk accessing time down to a minimum. Normally I don't bother doing that, as you well know, which should give you a pretty good idea of just how hefty the disk accessing is with this game. Now let's cut to the chase. If you are one of those gamers who is all about like arcade games and fast-paced shooters, or you know, just like fast-paced action games, you are going to hate this. You may as well stop watching now. This is not your type of game at all. Also, if you are another John Gage, i.e. you're as thick as pig shit and don't bother reading the instructions to any game you play, you are going to fucking hate this game as well, because you are not going to have the remotest fucking clue what you are doing. That's even if you do play through the tutorial. So again, it is not your type of game. But if you do have a degree of intelligence, and you are quite happy to play games that are somewhat slow paced, but allow you to play at, well, basically the level of complexity and the level of depth that you can stomach, because it's all here, then this could be the game for you. So back in the day I did have this. I bought this the week of release. I saw the review rather, in Amiga format, and I was just extremely impressed with what I saw. Rushed out and bought it. Although the game did run a lot slower than it will do in this review, I still thought it was fantastic. So anyway, so you have a selection of scenarios, so you can go through the tutorial. You have these various scenarios here, or you can have the experimental mode where basically you can do whatever you like. That's what I will do for the sake of this review, but I will essentially act out the tutorial, but without the tutorial hints and whatever to guide me along. So there's no way I can go through all of the features of this game and show you absolutely everything, because this video would go on for about 8 hours, and yeah, you don't want to watch an 8-hour video. So right, we'll play the experimental mode then. So it's now loading up. So this is the part that really does take a long time if you haven't got your emulator set up to run rather more quickly than it would normally do. So basically what it's doing is setting up the parameters for an entire planet. It's not just about the animals and the plants, because you can create any kind of life form you like, but it's also yeah, the actual, the entire environment that they all live in. And it's not just there for decoration. If you want to succeed, you have to take into account all of the whether it is the land elevation, moisture levels, average temperature, filter food, and the quality of the topsoil. It's all there, and more besides. But right, so the world design template is here. So new world name. Well, for the sake of this video, then we'll Lukozer review. That does pretty much sum it up. So regional weather variation. I don't want a huge variation, but I don't want none at all. So I'll leave that at that. Rivers and lakes is currently half and half. Yeah, I'll leave that. I think I'm going to leave pretty much all of this as is. So world average temperature is normal. It's not going to be blisteringly hot. It's not going to be too cold. Mountains, I might bug a few more mountains in, so it's going to be slightly more mountainous. Not too much, but world average moisture. Actually, I just thought with the rivers and lakes here, if you put it all the way up to the top, you create a world that's just completely ocean. If you then have a lot of mountains, there will be a fair few islands around, but for the most part it's an ocean world you're doing. World average moisture I will leave. World size, I don't know why they chose to have it as either tiny or small, but there you go. So I'll go with small. Things like this, toxins, mutagens, food sources and barriers, I won't have any in there, but you can add them at any time you like. So right, make it so now it's creating the area. This bit is running a lot faster than it would do on a regular 1200. So what I'm going to do is let it go through all of that, which it has done. So we'll now pause it, because the environment has been made. So this is it. This is the map of the world. Well, I'll show you the main window in a bit. So if we go through the maps, so this is the average rainfall. So it's quite low in this region, and it's very high here and down here. So this could be a bit of a sort of swampish area perhaps. This certainly looks more like desert. We'll find out when we bring up the temperature. Yeah, so temperature is quite high around here, so this is more of a sort of desert area. Temperature here is very low, so yeah, it's very sort of swampy area here. Now filter food, and you can see there is not a great deal around. It's mostly all around the coast. Filter food is going to be stuff like in the oceans. It will be like krill, you know, plankton and all that business. It's also things like, you know, small flies and stuff like that, you know, that you know, filter feeders will survive on. So yes, at the beginning it looked like there was far more than that. I mean, it's not a terrible amount. There's a lot here, but in that desert area, absolutely none at all by the looks of it, or next to none. Then finally the topsoil. Now everything that's under the sea here, the topsoil will be fantastic of course, but we can't use it, can't grow anything here. Again, the desert region, topsoil is very, very low. In the swamp area it's pretty good for the most part, very good in these like little islands here, not so great round here. These areas don't look too bad at all. And of course topsoil is essential if you want plant life to thrive. So okay, well let's go back then to the elevation. So because the topsoil was pretty good around this area, let's just double check it. Oh yeah, there we go. Right, so yeah, the topsoil is pretty good there. Let's just check the rainfall. Not so great. Looks like maybe some more sort of well, it's got to be plants that can survive without a great deal of rainfall. So we head down to this window here, or this toolbar here. You can see there will be various icons for the various animals. You can completely delete all of these and create all of your own animals. There is literally no limitation in how far and how advanced you want to make this. If you want to use, you know, animals that are already, you know, established, such as it was, you know, because they already exist, such as, you know, the llama here, horse, trilobite, they're all, you know, all sorts here, humpback whale, fruit beetle, you know. I've just noticed they spelt I'm so used to the fucking yeah, they have spelt that wrong, haven't they? That's beetle as in the Beatles, they've written that. It should be B-E-E-T-L-E. Oh well. Rock lobster. Okay. Well, okay, right. When we've got rock lobster and fruit beetle like that, I have a feeling that was done intentionally then. Sea urchins. I'll come back to them in a minute. Yeah. I've had some interesting times with those in this game. Anyway, so that's animal life, but we want plant life. Wouldn't mind being able to grow my own tobacco plants, but right. So we can have a look through the various plants. Now, obviously, if you have knowledge of botany, it does help because you've got an idea of what plants will grow in what locations. So this location that I've highlighted here, and if we go to the actual Lukozer review screen, this is what that area looks like. As you can see, it's just a barren sea of nothing. But we know that the topsoil here is good, but the rainfall and average temperature is not so great. Actually, I did check temperature. I did not check rainfall like a fucking pillock. So rainfall is quite high, but temperature is quite low. I think we could probably get away with planting plenty of variety here. Well, let's try. Right, I'll plant a few apple trees. Yes, as you can hear, there is sound in the game. Right, I'll plant a few fir trees. So these are all just the seeds that I'm putting down here. Cottonwood, don't really know what that is, but we'll give it a go. Just plant a few of those. Cranberry bush, okay, plant some of those up here. Poplar, well, that's an evergreen. Would be nice if I can get evergreens to last. They rarely do with me. They just do not germinate. Rambling rose, okay, let's have a few rose bushes there as well. Okay. Alright, so they are all planted. Let's unpause the game. Straight away, one of these has sprouted. The fir trees are doing very well. So this definitely looks like a good area for these plants. Certainly the fir trees. Another rose. So this, let's just check. I will highlight that one. So that's a cottonwood. That one's done okay, but none of the rest. So select again, populate if you want to. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, you want to populate more of the selected plant or animal. You need to select the populate one and left click. Doesn't look like I'm having any more success with any of these. No, there we go. So these have all come up quite nicely. These have certainly come up very nice. You'll notice that the time goes by very, very quickly. It actually starts at year 0 and we're already into year 1, day 12. You can see how quickly it goes between day and night. If it didn't go that fast, we'd be here, you know, an eternity just waiting for something to happen. So, right, well, let's use the smite tool. We'll get rid of these plants which are doing nothing. They are not being very successful. Oh, there we go. Right. Now, I can't remember what these other ones were, so I'll highlight them again. That was a cranberry bush. Okay, we'll plant some more of those. See how they do, and I certainly want to plant some more of those fir trees. I need to remember what kind they are. Poplar, okay, so it's not a fir tree. So we'll populate a few more of these. So we've got a bit of a forest growing up here. So yeah, cranberry bushes are particularly like in this area. Now you don't have to just keep on populating plants like this. I'm basically doing this manually. There is the tool down here. I'll try to remember which icon it is. I think it's this one. Nope. It is that one, I think, actually, with a double helix. Ah, no, right, this is the area you come to if you want to delete any animals and then create your own ones. So you have the options there, new plant, new animal. To save time, I won't go through all of that. I've done it plenty of times back in the day. Yeah, basically you can just go for your life there. It must be the map one then. No, that's just showing the map. Okay, what about the... I know it's somewhere around here. Which fucking one is it? Maybe it is this one, diversity. Loading something. That's just showing us our plants, and so it's basically a graph. I did say that the complexity of this game is quite staggering. I've also just remembered it's this button here, populate. So here you can select whatever species you like, including selecting all of them. So yeah, we could select all plants. We'll add them scattered, and if we add, say, 10 of each one on the land. Now some of these plants will not survive this because some of these plants are water plants. So that is now going to populate the world. They are going to be scattered about all over the place. As you can see, they're appearing on the map, various dots there. If we bring this up, we can see some are already starting to germinate, and some will just stay completely dormant because they can't survive in the location, or they can't grow in the location that they've been put in. Let's get rid of the highlight of that one. So now we can move the map around, have a check. So we've got some plants around the world, but of course the real big thing for most people is to create the animal life. So what we'll do, we'll pause the game again. Now I just want to double check again, the filter food is very, very low. It does vary between the time of year, so in some cases it will be, you know, very, very high, and at the present moment it's very, very low. There's a bit of a concentration around here. That's the location in the map. So let's go to animals. One of the first animals that you can usually put in fairly safely, knowing that they'll be fine, is the whale. So if we put the humpback whale in, let's just make sure it's got the populate tool selected. There we go. Right, now we've got one there on his own at the moment. So there he is, happily swimming around. Pause it again. What we will do now, we'll highlight him. There we go. And we can now, first of all, show the variables on him, which select him, let that load. So here we can see that his health is excellent. When it's in the green, it's fine. In the yellow, it means that his health is starting to get a bit low and he needs some sort of help. When it's red, he's going to die. Same with the food. When it gets into the yellow, then he's hungry. If it gets to the red, he's facing starvation. And again with the water, if it goes past the yellow mark, he's extremely thirsty. When it gets to the red, he'll basically die of dehydration. Although there's got to be something seriously wrong with a whale if it dies of dehydration. Radiation, well, I haven't put any like radioactive stuff anywhere. Radiation will cause mutations if the animals are exposed to it for too long. So then the weight, and well, Weight you can't change, height you can. All of these black arrows here, or these sliders, you can move them around however much you like. So if we move his food down to there, so he's now hungry, or he will be, and then we should catch him going around trying to eat. His age 3,416, so he's a fair age already. Forage count, I don't think that counts for humpback whales. It's obviously how much food he has gathered. Gestation, well, again, that doesn't matter because he's male, as you can see here. If it's a female and the female has mated, then you'll have a gestation bar here to let you know how long it will be before they give birth. And then this bottom one here, where it's currently saying I'm male, he will you can read what he's thinking, which is usually a lot of pretty random guff. So he's saying, I'm male, I'm bored. They often say I saw a llama, which is weird because I don't have any llamas around. But you can see he's already eaten and his food's gone up back to where it was. So he seems to be doing fairly okay considering that he's there all on his own. Now, other things we can look at. We can look at the phenotype, and this will show you when it loads exactly what kind of creature that we're dealing with. This is more useful and certainly more important if you've created the creature yourself, if you're not using one that's already been included in whatever scenario you're playing. So you have a high intelligence filter feeder. It's a swimmer, so it lives in the ocean. It has a long gestation time and few children. Now, if you want to get into really in-depth stuff, we can select Show Genes. Click on him again, and up comes this. I mean, how much fucking detail do you want? Because it is all here. You can change its gender, you can change its movement, so you can make it mutate so that it can walk on land or even fly. You can change its food sources, so this one will stop eating filter food, and we can turn it into a carnivore and it'll go after animals. Its behaviour, we can, well, it will share food. We can change it so that it'll be a right selfish bastard and just keep all the food for itself. We can change him so that he won't roam so much, he'll stay in the same area. Turning, how good at manoeuvring he is. Persist, how quickly he'll give up on doing something or other. So then you have like turning type and turn angle again, that's to do with his agility. There are no other animals around, so this is currently empty, but this is to show whether he will head towards a particular plant or animal, or whether he will actually actively avoid a particular plant or animal, or if he'll just ignore them. And the further down towards this end here, the more important, the higher the priority as far as avoiding or preferring a particular plant or animal. It just goes on and on and on. How long his lifespan is, how long he has to live before he's an adult, his size, how good its vision is, its gestation size, time. It's just, like I say, how much detail, how much depth do you need in a game? It is quite staggering the amount that you can do. And remember, this is just one animal, but you can change the entire species, or you can just select various animals, change some one way, change some another way. It is entirely down to what you want to do. So because this guy is all on his own, let's give him some companions. and plenty of them. Now when I unpause the game, you will hear a chorus of ooh la la. Here we go.
Ooh la la.
And that signifies that two animals have mated. It doesn't mean that they will definitely give birth, but it does mean that the female could now be going through the gestation period. But keeping a female animal when it's pregnant, keeping it alive, is a lot easier said than done. Let me put it this way. I have never successfully been able to keep a female animal alive long enough to give birth. The game plays a bit of a fanfare when an animal gives birth, and I have never heard it. So I couldn't tell you what the fanfare is, because I've never succeeded. The game is, well, it's every bit as difficult as the complexity would make you think it is. So right, let's unpause it. So the whales are all down in this area here, but you can see some of them are wandering a bit further afield. So let's pause this here. Now, to be honest, I did say that I would be doing what the tutorial has you trying to do. And since saying that, I've actually not done very much at all as far as what the tutorial would try and get you to do here. So let's I'll go to the smite tool again. Let's clear up this area of all this stuff that's not growing. These are all, this is in a desert area here, so it's not surprising that these are doing nothing. So what we can do now, I'll just go back to populate so that that's ready for use. With this you can place rocks, and these are of course barriers. So if we create a bit of an enclosure here, it doesn't have to be, you know, perfectly square, but you don't want to have any missing, so that yeah, like that, your animals can often get through there. We don't want them to get out. So right, they're out. Let's now add some water, so there is a watering you know, an area for animals to drink. I'll add a couple of areas here. There we go. And then we'll add this thing here. Now this is like a super feeder area, and any animal that goes up to it, it will find an infinite supply of the kind of food that it would eat. So it's basically a way of making sure your animals stay alive when you first start out. So I'll then put in some of old Lucia's llamas. Whoops, I'll put that one outside. Oh well. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, 10. I've made this enclosure a bit smaller than it would say in the tutorial. I'll also I'll be a bit of a cunt and get rid of the one that's outside. That ooh that you hear, that's the sound that all animals make when they die, and you can see the skeleton left behind. So we'll go back to the populate tool. Now we'll unpause it, and so you can hear that some of them are, well, a couple of them did mate. One of them has already died. It couldn't get to the food in time, so it must have been a pretty old one that was generated. So while they are currently, I mean, in this area, all right, they can't move around very much, but they've got plenty to drink, and they have one. Let's give them another area where they will always find their food. Another one has just died. Now, of course, this area that I've put them in is very hot. It's a desert area, so it's really not all that conducive towards survival of these animals. So if we now show the variables of one of them, let's pause it.
Ooh.
That's another one just died. So let's have a look at this guy. Wait for the load up. Right, he's just mated. Actually, I think he is a she because its gestation period has started. His food is very low. Right, we'll put that up. Okay, so now he's perfectly healthy. She's perfectly healthy. And get it underway. So yeah, I'm female. It says we demand pixels. I think that's their way of saying that you know, the area they're in is a bit small. So let's make it a bit bigger. Oh. Yeah, I'm really good at doing this, aren't I? Alright. Alright, now let's get rid of these. Get rid of this wall, so now they should have plenty of room to move around. Of course, the water is all up around here. Let's put this one in there, give them yet another food area. Right, so we can now unpause that. So I mean, this is, like I say, this is just the merest scratching of the surface of what this game has. I mean, I really haven't come close to showing you, you know, everything that the game has in terms of its, you know, complexity, in terms of what you can do. It's not just about pissing about like I've been doing here. I mean, it is the ultimate example of a sandbox game. A lot of people always bang on about, especially recently, they bang on about how Elite Dangerous is a sandbox game. It's not even fucking close. Games like this, or a universal sandbox for the PC, they are proper sandbox games. Elite Dangerous is a fucking sandbox game. There is pretty much no limit to what you can do with anything you've created here. There is almost limitless editing options for each animal and each plant. You can completely change the way that the world looks. You can, for example, raise or lower the temperature. You can raise or lower the amount of rainfall. You can raise or lower areas of you know, the actual landscape. You can adjust that. If you really want to, you can introduce disasters, so we could introduce a plague or an STD, a heat wave, cold wave, flood, drought, fire. You can even have a fucking comet that's come along and slams into the planet and pretty much wipes everything out. There is no, the only limitation is your own imagination. So you can also add radioactive areas. You can add like areas that are lethal for, I don't know, poisonous areas or whatever, toxins and whatever. It is all there. So I mean, let's start off the review then. Let's also stop it fucking following that one. Right, let's pause it, yeah, so I can get rid of the highlight off of him. So let's then start with the review. Well, in terms of audio, I mean, you've heard the audio. There is hardly any, but it doesn't matter. In terms of graphics, the graphics are, well, yes, okay, they are somewhat basic, but again, it doesn't matter. The limitation to in the graphics is again pretty much a limitation to your imagination, because when you decide to make your own plants or animals, you also, of course, can create the on-screen appearance of them. You then create the icon here for them. The on-screen appearance, as you can see with the plants, has to be, you know, whether it's a plant that's in full bloom, or if it's just, you know, in green, or if the leaves have all fallen off. So you've got three various stages. With the animals, you've got the young, the sort of adult, and then the elderly varieties. So there is so much there. So that could well be why the graphics are somewhat simplistic, because there is so much graphical content that the game needs to have stored. And then when it comes to the gameplay, I have never played anything like it. You know, I'm not exaggerating. I have never played a game like this before or since. I know there are plenty of like sim whatever games out there. None of them ever really grabbed me, but for some reason this one did, just because of how much was available and what you could actually do. And it could well be the most complex of all of the sim games that was released, or at least for the Amiga. When you look at say the amount of options that are within the game, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was the case, that this was the most complex one. Let's do our llamas a bit of a favour and see how many of them get out now that I've removed those. There we go, and they will start running away. I mean, with the presentation, the game came with an almighty huge fucking manual, unsurprisingly. But I mean, it covered every aspect you could think of. You know, if you reached the part of the game that, you know, you wanted to do, don't know how to do it, guaranteed the manual, bang, tells you exactly what to do, how to do it, whatever. The manual was superbly done. It does also, of course, mean that if you are one of those people who never bothers reading the manual, you are going to get absolutely fuck all nowhere. Because like I say, I barely scratched the surface of what is in this game in this video here. But I just do not have the time to show you everything. There is just so much. So, do I recommend it? Yes, of course I do. It's an absolute masterpiece of software engineering. To get all of this onto, you know, an Amiga. You know, the game only uses 3 floppy disks, and yet there is all of this here. The only drawback is the painfully long loading times, but well, with the emulator you can somewhat overcome that by either setting up the hard drive or just increasing the disk speed up to 800%, because I mean, for example, in some cases you do really need it. If I bring up the evaluation, which is basically your score, it will show you when it loads. So it shows us what we've got here. So score 1720, which is going down So rating Babe in the Woods, don't know what that is. Status plants are young. Now you can click on any of the pictures and that will give you some more information. So we go, at last count there were 14 walking animals. Some walking animals may also swim, climb or fly. If we click OK, the whole game stops because it has to reload all of the images that are on this evaluation screen. That's where the slow speed of the disk loading can really start to grate. So that's one area where you would think, yes, okay, I definitely want to either install it to a hard drive or increase the you know, the disk floppy disk reading speed. So what do I rate it? I have absolutely no hesitation. I rate this 10 out of 10. I mean, you could argue quite successfully that it's not a game in the purest sense of the term, but, you know, in which case, okay, I'm quite happy to say it's not a game. It's more a sort of experimental model of some kind, you know, for would-be botanists and would-be zoologists or something like that, you know, but it's just a game. It blew me away back in the day and it continues to do so now. I'm just absolutely amazed by it. I have no hesitation in giving it 10 out of 10. And if you even slightly think that this game might appeal to you, then I cannot, you know, recommend highly enough. Give it a try. Like I say though at the start, if your idea of gaming is purely all about, you know, fast-paced action, this is not the game for you. And I say steer well clear of it. But I'm a huge fan, absolutely no question, it's a 10 out of 10 game. So that is SimLife, or more specifically SimLife AGA for Commodore Amiga. 10 out of 10, absolutely fantastic. I would probably say this is the best game I have reviewed to date. So that brings this review to an end, and we will see you at the next one.